Alisa, do you want to be an influencer?
I thought we already are, Jen.
Actually, everyone's an influencer, but do you want to be a godly influencer? Keep watching to learn more about how God has given each of us impact and influence and how we can glorify God with it.
Welcome back to Captivated by Him, where we discover how to love and know God more. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Jen.
We've been going through some fun videos on dignity and how we, as daughters of God, have inherent dignity and worth. But we must also choose to live with dignity, just like how a princess chooses to put her tiara on. In today's video, we'll be sharing about how a dignified woman is one who lives with impact. For more videos on dignity, please give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'm excited for this, so let's get into it.
To begin, we must first define what impact and influence are. It is the ability to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something else. Maybe you're thinking about how there are social media influencers whose job is to get viewers to buy a certain product or live a certain lifestyle. But did you know that you don't need to be a social media influencer or a person of authority to have influence?
That's right, Jen. We all have influence, and it's constant. Our influence is not an option or choice because people are always watching us and how we live our lives. We can't choose whether we influence others or not, but we can choose what we do with our influence, either in good or bad ways. For example, we can influence others to see and think about God more, or we can influence others to see and think about God less. As daughters of God, let's point people to God Himself and to eternal things that matter, thus having a dignified impact.
In order to have a godly impact, we'll consider 3 P's: the position, the principles, and the practice. For today's video, we'll focus on our position of godly impact, but stay tuned for more videos addressing the other P's. Our influence and impact on others is important because how we live our lives as Christians shows others who God is. With a godly impact, we can show others the worthiness, majesty, and greatness of God. And with an ungodly impact, we can distract others from God and instead point them to ourselves.
Specifically, we want to encourage everyone with the rich truths of Ephesians 4:1 that says, "Therefore I, the prisoner of the Lord, implore you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling with which you have been called." We are going to break apart this passage and examine different words that will ultimately encourage us in our godly impact on others.
So the first word, being therefore, causes us to look back at what comes right before, which provides some context for us. Before this verse, in Ephesians 1:3, where Paul is talking about our salvation, the bountiful spiritual blessings we have in Christ, and the mystery of the gospel revealed. Ephesians 4:1 is a turning point where Paul shares now about the application of the truths mentioned in the chapters before.
To begin his encouragement in our application of truth, he says he implores, which means to call to one's side, admonish, exhort, urge. It is a strong call to action, to pursue a certain course of conduct, which is to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, let's also break that apart. Walk is the state in which one is living and the activities done day by day, step by step. In this verse, walk here is in the active voice, which tells us that it is an active choice that we have to make.
Manner worthy means suitably, and worthy, it also means equivalent. So we can see this word like an equal sign in the sentence. Our walk, which is the phrase before, is to be equivalent to what is mentioned in the next verse, which is the calling with which you have been called. In essence, Paul is saying, walk your life equivalent to your calling in Christ. Wow, that is a high calling indeed, and a choice we must make day by day, step by step.
Lastly, what is the calling we have in Christ? The phrase in this verse says, the calling with which you have been called, and it is so rich with scriptural truths. It references how God has called us out of darkness and into His marvelous light. God has saved us from our old lives of being controlled by a life of sin and brought us into His saving grace and light, where we now have a God-given desire to want to honor Him. God calling us is Him saving us, redeeming us, and making us His daughters.
Romans 8:16-17 says, "The Spirit Himself testifies with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, heirs also, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with Him, so that we may also be glorified with Him." And with that position, we can have a godly impact on others by living lives that point to God. The way we live our lives should show others how amazing God is. It should direct and motivate people to honor and glorify God. As God's daughters, we represent the King, so we want to make the active choice to represent God well and not misrepresent Him. When we live dignified lives and are dignified in our actions, we show others how our God is worthy of respect.
I've had a neat opportunity recently to consider my own impact on others through investing in my disciples' lives over the years. It's such a privilege that God uses me in their lives and allows me to witness their growth over all these years. For example, I've been talking about growing in joy and steadfastness with one of my disciples for many years, and it's been really neat to see God impacting her life through discipleship.
Wow, thanks for sharing, Alisa. That is a great example of how God has been using the actions and testimony of Alisa's life to help another sister look to God more in her walk. Our impact can determine whether others would choose to live their lives to glorify God, so we have a great responsibility.
Godly impact is mandated as daughters of God. So let us take great care in how we represent God to others, living lives that walk in a manner worthy of the calling He has given us. I can't wait to keep learning about how to have a godly impact in our next couple of videos on the principles and practice of godly impact. Until next time, stay captivated.
Buy this Bible because I'm a Captivated by Him influencer.